Herzlich willkommen zum Thema Zukunft Expatriatismus. Dazu habe ich einen ganz tollen Gast, Javier Domingo Cansino. Er ist Softwareingenieur, kommt aus Bilbao in Spanien ursprünglich, hat dann in London gelebt und gearbeitet und zurzeit ist er in Köln ansässig. So richtig hier ist er aber selten, denn er ist ein Remote-Arbeiter. Das heißt, er hat seinen Laptop, einen Internetanschluss und kann dann eigentlich von überall, vom Strand, vom Berg oder aus dem Bus arbeiten. Und warum er das tut und warum er auch glaubt, dass das ein gutes Stück Zukunft von Arbeit ist, das erzählt er mir im Interview hier bei Mensch Zukunft, Zukunft Mensch. Herzlich willkommen, Javier. Javier, very welcome to the Human Future Human Studio. This is going to be a premiere, our first interview in English language.
Okay.
So I'm very pleased that you're here, honored as well, of course, especially as you are an expert, in my humble opinion at least, about the future of expatriatism, because it's what you practice on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
I learned so far that you are from Spain and that you worked in London for a while. Now you work in Cologne, or let's say out of Cologne. We might come back to this. Let's probably just kick this off by learning what it actually means to you, like expatriatism. Do you feel like an expatriate in Cologne, Germany, or what do you take from that term?
Yeah, actually that's interesting because I never thought of myself as that, but I know that I'm for a fact that. But it always sounded like so much like being committed to living outside, right? That's what I associate the term. Like one thing, like when do you start to be an expat? Like what period of time do you need to be out of home to define that? And for me, it was always, I always felt like I was just living somewhere else, but not like I was committed to be out of home. It's been now 7 years since yeah.
And is that enough of a time
I guess so.
To grow the feeling of being committed to being an expatriate?
Actually, I started to have the feeling like earlier past year, I think, like end of the past year. But it's not really a word I associate myself with. But I think it's also because for me, for some reason, I always associated expat to living. And then like as in a more traditional way where you establish yourself and then you have all your life around like one single point.
A new single point, like
exactly.
A foreign single point.
Let's say that I was from Bilbao and now I moved to UK and now I'm here. And then here I do my new life, which would mean everything, like a professional life, personal hobbies, everything. However, for me, first of all, most of this has always been motivated towards work. So I have moved, for example, I moved from Bilbao to the UK because of the opportunities it presented to me.
And just so everyone understands, what is it you do?
Oh, so I'm a software engineer. Mm-hmm. I have, like, there are a lot of things you can do there, and I have done a lot of different things. So it has been changing, and I have been discovering. And during that time, actually, for example, one of the things I had was that, like, for personal reasons, I decided that UK was the best move I could do to expand my horizon. Because when you're in a small town, there is only that much new people you can meet. And that's something very... And then...
May I quickly interrupt there, because this is already super interesting to me, because as a software engineer, I imagine you work a lot online, collaborate with people from all over the place. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on the company.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So, for example, I was working at a company where I was in charge of representing the company in an alliance, like of several companies about IoT and stuff like that. And I did that for like 2 years. And in my specific team, we were R&D, so we had a lot of contact with outside companies. But in general, like anything that wasn't R&D was mostly in touch with teams within the company. And if that company is not a global one, then you're always going to be in that. And it's also about the opportunities you have when you live somewhere, right? So for example, like I moved from a city, well, a village of like 100 to 200K people to London, it had like 16 million people or something like that. And that was like 1,000 times or 10,000 times hop, right?
And you did that on purpose, when I understood that correct. So you were back home in your previous home, like your Spanish home in Bilbao, and you looked at the world and you looked for places where you could have the deepest discovery space available that somehow matched your competences and preferences, or was it less planful?
So it was, I actually chose London because like of personal reasons, but between my choices, it was actually only London. At the time it was part of the EU, so it was a very easy hop. There are direct flights from Bilbao to London, and that was something important because actually being able to go back to your place, it's something that makes you feel safe, right? So it's not the same thing to be an expat in Germany when you're from Spain that to be in Germany when you're from, I don't know, Tokyo. Maybe Tokyo is a bad example because it's probably well connected, but if you're from some village somewhere in, I don't know, anywhere.
The back of Brazil.
Exactly. That's not going to be an easy way back. And I had like family things that where I could have someone dying or something like that that actually posed a concern on me to be able to, like, if something happens, I want to be there like within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. That's it.
But let's rewind back to the point when I interrupted. So you looked at London and you decided to go. And still, you didn't feel like an expatriate because?
Well, it was all of an adventure. So it didn't feel very real or like a place I'm going to live. I was just going there. Literally, how I did it was I quit in my Spanish job. I told them, look, I need to go. And they were like, well, if you want to come back, there is always a... So that was something that made me feel safe already. And then
like a backup option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like let's say I fail going there, because there are a lot of things associated with that. It's not only the personal level in which you disconnect from being in that environment in which you feel safe, but also, for example, being able to live in the place. Like in Spain, I was earning like around 1,200 a month, and I had to pay for a rent in London around 1,050 a month.
Okay.
So, so I had savings, and
different
I actually
parameters.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like a great difference in living.
And did that feel back then more like an intimidation or like, as you said, an adventure?
The thing is, when you have a backup plan and you're 1.5 hours away from home, even if it's by plane, like going to Madrid inside the Spain takes longer than the plane from London to Bilbao. So that's, you feel safe. And then it was just like, let's do it. And I actually sent an email to this alliance. And the director reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to send your profile to some of the startups that are part of the alliance. And from that,
Because you went without a job in London?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I'm going. I have the ticket for next week or for in 2 weeks.
That's bold.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy when I think about it. But it was very... I don't know, I was also younger, and I think now, like, the thing is, when you have, like, I remember I think it was 4,000 euros saved, okay? I burned through all of it in the first month, because it was getting an Airbnb to land in. That burned 1,000 already, like for 10 days, it was super expensive. Then I had to pay the deposit for the room. That was like 1.5 months. It was 1,000 something, so it actually was around like 2,000. And then that's 3,000. And well, I was super lucky, and I got a job literally the second day from one of these contacts. Like I had an interview, and they told me, yeah, you're hired. And that was a very nice start, right? So I always considered myself very lucky on those things. Yeah. And now the next thing was, okay, now what? Like, okay, I have a place. So, for example, priorities for me, it's going to sound a bit... I work remote now. I have been doing so for the last 5-6 years now, almost since I moved to the UK. And
100% remote.
Back then, it wasn't 100. Now, for the last 3 years, it is.
Okay. So you're one of those, the new workforce that can literally work from anywhere and does it.
But the thing is, most of the people can. And so therefore, when you are speaking about expatriatism, work is no longer a part of expat for me. So because you settle in a place.
That's super interesting, especially looking forward, like into future concepts.
It's not about work anymore. Mm-hmm. Like most of the times, like there was a crisis in 2000, and here in Cologne we have a huge Spanish-speaking community because a lot of people fled from Spain to other countries to be able to get a job after the crisis.
And they were not necessarily what we call sometimes digital nomads, but
they were
regular
not,
people.
But they could have been in most cases.
Yeah.
Like,
but it needed a crisis to like make them into those.
Well, the thing is, they are not working remote. They are working here a normal role, in which they go to the office.
I see.
What I'm trying to get to is that as people have discovered the ability to connect with your family, for example, or your own free time while you work for a company by not having to commute for 2 hours, for example. Or for me, that was actually, I was trying to get to that. It was a priority. So in Bilbao, I lived, I'm from specifically Getxo, and there I was like 150 meters away from the office. So for 2 years, my commute was 1 minute and a half of walking.
Okay, can't be really any shorter.
Yeah, it was difficult to get better conditions than that. And when I moved to the UK, I said, okay, I'm going to be working in bank, and I got something in Brick Lane. And that was 10 minutes away. That was bearable, like walking, everything. Of course, in bike would be like 5 minutes. And from that, I started to develop a sense of, I don't want my job to mark where I live. And that has been something very like critical or like a basic thing in my life.
See, this is why I invited you, besides many other reasons, because what I perceive you as is a kind of pioneer for this new work concept, as some people call it, because we need some title for this. We just had another conversation with a lawyer who looked into the future as well with us, and he said we really need to get to the point where we ask ourselves, why do we still need to like hold this job thing so highly up on a pedestal? Can't we do this differently? Like, what happens if we put that away and being jobless becomes probably even a new status, like a positive thing, because you all of a sudden you have free time to actually pursue your real interests.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bit black and white, but obviously you started quite early to at least question the value behind the traditional job concept, at least, right?
For me, it was not that much the job concept, but rather the office concept.
The office concept.
Exactly.
Yeah, but usually that was like super closely
they are very close.
Knit together, right?
And about that, for example, I do believe that, I mean, also I'm super lucky in that because my job is one that I can do with a laptop, right? If you're a nurse, you're a teacher, there are so many jobs that you cannot.
Sure. Yeah.
But you have a shop. Yeah. You have a shop. You need to be there when they open. I can wake up at 7 a.m. and that's fine. And I can wake up at 10 a.m. and as long as I don't have any meeting that I missed, that's also okay.
Mm-hmm. So give us a glimpse, like an insight into your current situation, clients you serve. From where are they?
In this case,
cultures, time zones. What is it?
So right now, for example, I'm doing 2 main clients. One is from Colombia and the other one is from the UK. And those 2 are like completely different. Like one is the Colombian guy's solo startup that he grew organically to thousands of clients. And they're like giving them IT services, rather like internet. provider. And then the other one is like a kind of smaller startup that has actual funding and everything. But I have, so the concept of work, like when I had my first job in Bilbao, and I only had one job in Spain. Like I went out from uni to that job, and after 2 years, 3, I quit and went to the UK. And from there, I have actually changed job the first job, it was good for landing, but it wasn't a good match. So we stopped there after 3 months. Then I founded my company. I was doing some consultancy for a startup incubator. Then I moved to another startup that stayed 1 year and a half. They went under. I had 6 months sabbatical there. I used, I wasn't actually living in, in my house. I was traveling all around because I was like, okay, I don't have a job. I can actually, and then I used that time to learn stuff. So for example, in my case, I'm more like around data engineering. And I took that time to learn about machine learning. Like I did all the courses in Coursera and all these kind of platforms during like 3 months. That was, I was studying more than I would have worked because it was like a passion, like I want to at least know what it looks like on the other side. And after that, I started to look for a job. And I remember at that time I was in Berlin and I was interviewing with a lot of companies from the UK because I still lived in the UK. And still, they couldn't offer, this was 2017, 18.
Not too long ago, actually, 5 years.
Yeah. So they couldn't offer remote
work.
That was not something.
And you said, well, I'm out then.
No, not that much. I was like, okay, you cannot, but how flexible can you be? Like if I want to be 1 week off and stuff like that. And I ended up literally being, so I actually chose the company I wanted to work for. So I had 3 offers. One was 500 meters away from my place, another one 1.5 kilometers, and the other one 40 minutes.
And let me guess which one you chose.
Exactly. And that was like a big factor on what I wanted to do. And from there, the thing is, like when you're in such a big city like London, the amount of opportunities you have. First of all, you need to be lucky about the kind of job you have. Okay, I understand. Like not everyone has the luck and the chance to be able to do what they do in this way. Okay, but for software, specifically, it's like this. And I realized that I could meet with people because I really like to meet the people and everything. But then I don't need to be there on the day-to-day. We had like team lunches. For the first 2 weeks, we were every day going out for lunch together, like to meet each other and everything. But after that, you are like, okay, I'm not going to be more productive in the office. Like you have interruptions, people going by, other people celebrating whatever, or there are a lot of things.
The buzz,
which is, there are people that love it, but for me, where getting into a problem takes me half an hour, but getting out of that problem takes 5 seconds of someone tapping you. It's very hard, right?
So you need to focus quality.
Yeah. So how software works is that at least my job works is that the stuff that you do is usually not that hard, like to write, to implement, but the ability to write each of the words you need to write, you need to have a huge mental castle that is literally like a card castle. So if you keep adding pieces until you find the path that you want to, and then you start coding that. And if any moment there is anyone anything actually, even a phone call that interrupts you, then part of it shambles and then you need to reconstruct it.
Understood. So that's a super concrete insight into your individual perspective. Now I invite you to change the perspective a little bit and take a step back. Let's look onto the world as it is like today and then try with some projections for whatever future you pick. It can be the next 12 months, could be the next 5 years, you can make it 50 if you like. So there's a world that is getting ever more connected, right? Despite all the crises, which is a second phenomenon I see with food shortages and the climate and war and migration and whatever we want to take a look at. So several crises parallelly. The technologization of the world, so ever more connectedness. Also the number of jobs, I think, that do actually sit on a laptop only is increasing, despite the fact that you just mentioned, like with nurses and people like, I don't know, handing stuff over a counter. Obviously that's going to stay. But the volume globally of people who are actually able today already and will be in the future to work from anywhere increases. What are your fantasies about the future of expatriatism, this strange concept that you can relabel it also, give it a new name? What do you see? Are there trends? Have you got a notion that either younger people or same age people, older people, from wherever, will behave in new ways? Do you see anything?
So I would say that if we remove the job part from expatriatism, as we have done, and we focus on the other two aspects that you have, so you would have what is your love life or your like family and stuff like
relationships,
that. Exactly. And then you would have your free time. So what is only about you. Then I think from one, you probably will have, I think cities will decrease in density somehow. I think with Corona actually helped a lot. A lot of people to move out from the offices, and that means you don't need to make a choice. I mean, my 500-meter choice is maybe a bit extreme, but to other people, they are choosing between half an hour and 1 hour,
or even longer.
Or even
depends
longer,
on the place. Yeah,
exactly. So the moment that disappears, you have housing opportunities that are much more affordable in maybe not such centric places, right? So, for example, now I live here in Nipes, but if I have the kind of life in which I want to have more space, I'm only one, so it's not a problem, but if I have a family, then you might want to have a garden. And having a garden here, it's either extremely expensive or you need to go somewhere else because there is literally no land.
Simply impossible,
exactly.
Yeah.
So then you would step out, I don't know. In London would be going from zone 1 to zone, 8 or 7. And that's already almost like a village. It's still London. It has 100, I don't know how many kilometers from side to side. But it literally starts to be like a small distributed villages.
Entirely different landscape also. Yeah.
So, and this is something that I think it's more common in Europe than it is in Spain. Because in Spain, we always build up. So population density, I remember an ex-manager of mine, he was sharing views on how population density, so basically by a square meter, how much people you have. Not that much how much people you have in total, but rather in relation to the amount of land you have. And Spain had crazy numbers because we have buildings, the shortest one is 5 stories. And
so
then,
agnostic of where we are.
I mean, unless you're in very, very village and then you only have 2.
Yeah.
But having, 20-story high buildings, that's something very common. 10, 7. And that means that you have a lot of population in a very centric area. And that means the amount of space each individual has is very, very low. So, and here in Germany and Netherlands and UK, it's we always joked in my degree about how would you deploy internet to them. Because if you only need to connect a building, even if it's very big, it's just one cable. But when you have a lot of land, you need to bring a cable to each of the houses.
Or a satellite dish.
Yeah. Exactly. But even those things.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, the fact is that you have a hard requirement about the services you need to provide and everything. I think that's going to be a challenge. Towards more the expatriatism part, so let's say the fact that you are in a different country, I think that will be more driven about the culture. So once you remove the hard requirement of the job, I think it will be more about the culture that you want to live in, or the culture that you want for your kids, for example, and stuff like that. Maybe, and the other one is super important, is family. Like if you have elderly people that you need to take care of and everything, you will collocate.
Sure, that binds you to a place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine someone taking their loved ones to somewhere else, but I think it's more common to leave them in their place and you just collocate. And I think that's one of the things that makes it the hardest, to move away from the people you love. Because when you're young, then you don't have that much that in mind. But a lot of people I know have been expats for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, and after some time they start to think, well, maybe, where do I want to have my family? That's one. And second one, where do I, like, can I not be next to my people? And I have friends in, I don't know, Italian and Spanish that were like, yeah, I don't really like the culture of my country, so I know that's a no. That's a strong enough feeling to say, okay, yeah, bye. But then where do I want to be? For example, I know quite a few people that because of Brexit say, okay, I want somewhere where my children will speak English. I know I don't like my home country, where can I settle? And there is a lot now, like all these like technological poles are moving quite a bit towards Europe from the UK. That's actually, I think, activated a lot of the appeal and everything here. And then you have also like the amount of cultural diversity you have. And that's for me very critical. I moved to Cologne, like for me now, like after going from like 100K to 16 million, the difference in population was so big that everything feels smaller now.
Of course.
So for me, Cologne is like a small place now. And I like it very much because you have a lot of different cultures without being massive. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's part of the appeal that has to, you know, move. And then there is the cultural communities, right?
Now, after all those years, I think it was 7, you said, since you started your journey through the European, at least, part of the world. Looking at how people interact with each other, but also with themselves, we touched upon this moment when you realized, well, I can like eliminate the job part from the function of where I live and how I live. What would you like recommend to? It's a big word, but like that part of humanity that is so privileged to move freely, to pick places, to actually board on a journey, to maybe, increase understanding with each other, increase problem-solving capacities between different tribes, clans and cultures.
I think the first step would be not that much to move somewhere else to live, but rather just to travel. And I'm not speaking about typical organized trip in which you go somewhere and you're driven from place to place, but rather having holidays, I don't know, in like Bulgaria or in Croatia, but not in a like traditional fashion, but rather I'm going to live 2 weeks in a place. Maybe go into hostels and that stuff. And I think that's the first step towards knowing if this is the kind of thing you want. Because just because you can doesn't mean you have to, right? And once you have that, is where do you want to, like how do you want to use that? And if you want to, maybe there are things that you, okay, so for example, the first thing, the job. Maybe I can get let go of the security of an stable job and move into contracting.
So kind of testing.
Exactly.
Is there a place that you absolutely dare to still go and explore that you haven't yet been to?
You mean like physical place, or? I don't know, like I think it's always very scary not to have a job right now. And there is also all the things that people as you age, so for example pension and stuff like that. But I have found that the period between when I'm finishing a contract and starting the next one is, as long as you have the next one lined up, it's the best, because you can literally enjoy it to your fullest. You don't have that stress of what I'm going to do. But it's all also about savings, I think. Like if you have a backup, as I was saying, for everything, and you make sure that that backup comforts you, it's easier to, yeah.
How would you describe this special time, the in-between time? Like finish the last one, next one is lined up, just that phase that you described a minute ago. Because sabbatical to me seems not to be the appropriate description.
Yeah, no, you have a due date, right?
What is this time?
I would say it's a holiday with only excitement in front of you. Because, so usually you will get a role because it excites you. And second, it is going to be a role that is new and everything, so that has...
You're talking about the new job assignment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you have nothing else. So you only have like a milestone that you are going to start on or like to go to. And then you have, I don't know, depending on how you organize yourself.
And the savings?
Yes, the savings is important. For example, when I moved from the UK to Germany, I had a month of sabbatical or holiday, and I spent it in Menorca. And I was diving I learned how to dive there, and I got like, I don't know, 4 titles and everything. I was literally sleeping in a camp there on the open because I didn't want to spend onto like proper, and it was also like, I didn't know I was going to Menorca. My ticket was to Palma de Mallorca, but I was like...
And then you got lost.
Yeah. But it's very, like, you open a lot because you don't have any worries. So you can literally say, okay, I could go to... And that exploration phase, I think people that get sabbaticals...
Now we have the term. And I want to use it
okay.
as our finisher, because time is up already, and it makes me really sad because this is so exciting and I've learned so much, and I thank you very much for that. Super grateful. Yeah, let's think about that period in between a little more. It resonates strongly with me. I'm curious what it does with you guys. So go ahead, tell us. Have you ever done this? Have you ever felt this? That there's only the one next milestone to achieve, and otherwise you're completely free of any obligations, and you can be truly open and adventurous and discover and get lost in places like Mallorca and then end up in Menorca or probably somewhere entirely else. I want to know, I want to learn from you guys as well, so use the comments for this if you like. Find us on the social media channels of your choice and drop us messages, drop us ideas, critique. We're also very open for that. And if you like this kind of interview, these conversation series, then of course you can also hook up to the channel. Watch the next one, take a break, think about your next excitement sprint, explore the world, and stay with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon.